began this series saying this simple truth that your direction determines your destination. And then we took it a step further and we said this. We said that it's your direction, not necessarily your intention, that determines your destination. So if you figured out in life, hey, this is where I want to be, or this is where I want to go, then it doesn't mean that you can just sit there and say, oh, then I'm really going to desire real strongly to go somewhere. No, it says that the principle says that it's your path that you're on, or it's the direction that you head that determines your destination, not necessarily your intention or your desire to get into a certain destination. And this is easy to understand in terms of driving, right? Because you understand that if you don't get on a certain road to head down this road, then you're not going to get to that destination. If you choose the wrong road, it's going to take you down the wrong path, right? But in other areas of life, areas like friendship and areas like your dating relationships and your educational pursuits, or where you want to go to college, or your athletic pursuits, those areas of life, it begins to get a little murky. Because there are times in life when you desire real strongly to get somewhere, and in the end you look to God and you say, God, what's your problem? Where were you? Why did I not end up where I wanted to end up? And I think God would say, and probably your friends and your family as well would say, well, the reason why is because you were on the wrong path. That it's your direction, not your intention, that determines where you want to go. So today we're going to ask this question. We're going to ask the question, what does that mean, and how do we know what path to take? How should you and I know what path we should be on? Because here's why it's important. Because I hate it when I see students that get to their senior year or get to their junior year and say, oh, I wish I could change what I was doing when I was a freshman, or I wish I could take back my sophomore year. But the truth is that you can't. That once you become a senior, you can't look back and change what happened when you were a freshman or a sophomore. And what you were doing when you're a freshman and a sophomore is going to determine where you are as a senior. And so as seniors, when they don't like where they are, the problem usually is because they were on the wrong path as freshmen and sophomore. And you only get one freshman year. You only get 1 year to be a sophomore. You can only do it one time. And so it makes it extremely important to know, what path are you on? And how do you know what path you should be on? Now, the reason why this is so important is because if you get lost in life, you lose precious time. If you're on the wrong path in life, you lose incredible moments and memories. You see, when you're driving around, or if you're riding around with your parents and you happen to get lost, what do you lose? I mean, you might lose a couple of minutes, right? You might get a little frustrated because you're lost. But think about it. In life, if you get on the wrong path and you start headed down the wrong path in life, what do you lose? You might lose a whole semester of life. You might look back and lose an entire year of life. You might get to be a senior and look back on your high school days and say, you know what? I lost 2 years of my life because I was headed down the wrong path. And I don't want that for you, and you don't want that for you. So we got to figure out, how do we get on the right path? How do we know what path we should be on? Now, the best way to do that is to look at this verse in Proverbs. It's a very simple verse. It says this right here. It says that the prudent see danger and they take refuge, but the simple, they keep going and they suffer for it. You see, there are just two main characters in this verse. There's the prudent and there's the simple. Another word for prudent is wise. That the wise person has the ability to see danger and take refuge. But the simple, or the Hebrew word for simple, just means naive. It's that person that you know who's dated a guy 2 different times and he's cheated on her both times. And she says, oh, it's no big deal. He's probably not going to cheat on me this time. And everybody's rolling their eyes going, yeah, right. He's cheated on you twice before. Why would he not cheat on you again? Or it's that person who says, hey, I've hung out with these same group of friends 5 different times, and every time I hang out with them, we always end up in trouble. But it's that naive student that says, but you know, this time's going to be different. Maybe this time we're not going to get in trouble. And everybody around them says, look, you know what happens when you hang out with them. Don't be so naive, right? So we have to understand these two characters, that there's somebody who's wise and there's somebody who's simple or naive. So in this story, we have 2 different people with 2 different responses to the same situation. They're driving down the road and they both see the same caution sign. The only difference is they take 2 different responses, right? So the simple, what they do is they see that sign And instead of taking caution and seeing the caution sign and actually doing something about it, they just keep going. You probably know people like this in your life. Chances are you've been like this at some point in your life. When your mom or your stepdad or your grandfather has said, hey, be careful, you're headed down a road and you're going the wrong direction. And you might say, wow, you're right. But in your heart of hearts, you really don't plan to do anything about it. Or you might even say, oh, that's not that big of a deal. I can handle it once I get down there. And so you just keep going and you don't do anything for it. You see, that's what the simple does. The simple sees the danger, but instead of taking refuge, they just keep going. Now, but you see, the wise, they do something different. The wise or the prudent, that's the person that sees the danger and actually acknowledges it and then takes refuge. They do something about it. They turn around and go the other direction. What's interesting is when you read this verse doesn't say that the Christian sees danger and takes refuge while the unbeliever keeps going and suffers for it. It doesn't say that, does it? See, the reason why is because there's plenty of Christians who are simple Christians. In fact, there's some unbelievers that are wise people. There are Christians that see the danger and think, oh, I should probably do something about it, but they just don't do anything about it. Have you ever talked yourself out of taking refuge when it comes to seeing danger? Sure you have. I've done that plenty of times. And in the same way, when we see that danger, we need to actually, instead of just saying, oh, I should do something, we need to actually move and do something about it, because that's what the wise would do. So when the warning signs come up in our lives, when we're headed down the path and we see the caution sign, you and I have two choices to make. We have a choice where we can see the caution and take notice and take a different direction. Or we can just keep going and we can suffer for it. We've said that the wise, that they see the caution or hear the caution and they make a move. They do something about it. See, it's the kind of student that doesn't wait to the brink of disaster to do something. No. Earlier, when they can change direction with very little consequence, they do that. See, how many times in your life have you gotten yourself in a situation where you're thinking, how did I get in this situation? And you know that along the way, people were whispering, saying, hey, be careful. Hey, you're headed in the wrong direction. But for one reason or another, you just didn't listen. See, the words that the writer of Proverbs uses are very simple. When he talks about what's going to happen to the simple, he says 3 words. He says that the simple is going to suffer for it. You're going to suffer for it. And your choices are dismal in a way. You don't have great choices, that you're going to suffer for walking down a path that's headed in the wrong direction, that there are danger there. There's danger and you're going to suffer, unfortunately. And it's not because God doesn't love you. No. God couldn't love you more. But the problem is that God works based on principles. You see, you can't break the principles of God. You can break yourself against the principles of God, but you can't break the principles of God. Let me give you an example. If you were to climb up to the top of a building and jump off of a building and then, bam, slam into the concrete, you can't get mad at God, right? You can't say, God, what was your problem? You didn't save me. God, how did you let me get into this disaster? No, your friends would think you're crazy. What would they say? They'd be like, look, that's called gravity. That's how God works. God works based on the principle of gravity. And you see, God's the one who he originated gravity. And so based upon that, he uses gravity in life. And so for you and me to say, oh, God, I'm mad at you because of what happened when you used gravity and caused me to hit the pavement, that's silly, right? And in the same way, this is a principle of God, that direction determines destination, not intention. So you might have great hopes and dreams, but if you're headed in the wrong direction, then you're going to end up in a destination that direction takes you in. See, a great way to think about this is to think about it in the realm of relationships. Did you know that the nature of all relationships has movement to it? That all relationships move. That every relationship you're in is moving in one direction or another. So let me ask you, what's going on in your relationship with your dad? What about your stepmom? What about your stepdad? What about your mom? What about your sister? What about your brother? What about your friends at school? What about your boyfriend, your girlfriend? What's happening in that relationship? Are you on a good path? Are you on a path that's going to take you to the destination that you want to end up in? Because all all relationships have movement, and you're headed in a direction. The question is that the path that you want to be on? You suffer for the choices that we make. That's what the verse says. You see, nobody gets to the end of life and says, you know what, this is perfect. I wanted to be a drug addict. I'm exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to be addicted to alcohol. Nobody says that. But you see, when you get in that moment, when you land at that destination, it's too late to look back and say, oh, I should have been a more disciplined person. Because you see, when you're already at the destination, to look back and say, oh, I wish I could have more discipline now, it's too late. You're already an addict. See, and that's the problem with this situation, is that if you're on a path, it's taking you in a direction that's going to end up at a destination. The question is, what path are you on? See, I don't want to waste my life. I mean, I don't want to waste a year. I don't want to waste a day. I don't want to waste a minute. And I wouldn't imagine that you want to either. And I wouldn't imagine that the people who really love you want that for you. I mean, see, I don't want you to end up in a place where you've chosen a path, you've chosen a direction that's taken you in a destination where you're out of options, where you're left just sitting with yourself, having to deal with the consequences that you've chosen for yourself because back in the past you chose a path that took you to that destination. And see, because you refuse to get off the path, you've been left having to deal with the suffer for it part of this verse. See, nobody wants that. I don't want that, and you don't want that. So let me ask you a question. Are you on a path that you don't want to be on? Are you on a path that's heading in a direction that's going to end up in a destination where you don't want to be someday? Because if you are, then the choice is yours. Then you can decide, I'm going to get off this path and I'm going to choose another path. I'm going to choose another path that's going to take me in a different direction. You can do what the wise person did when he said, I'm going to see the danger, I'm going to listen to the danger, and I'm going to take refuge. See, your Heavenly Father loves you so much that He's put enough warning signs in the road so that you can see the danger, so that you can get off and try a different path that's headed in a different direction, that's going to end in the destination where you really want to end up. So don't waste your life. Don't waste another minute. Don't waste another day. If you're on the wrong path, then do what the wise person did. See the danger, listen to the danger, and take another path. Find the path that leads to Him. Find the path that leads to the destination where you want to end up in life. See, the naive, the simple, they keep going and they suffer for it. They do. But the wise, they see the danger and they take refuge.